Prevence Podcast.
European legislators are pushing ahead with the digitization of more and more areas of the judicial system. This digitization will not take place in one giant reform, but will be implemented through a multitude of laws, legislative proposals, and consultations. The previous procedures have been seen as inefficient and lengthy by many parties, including the legislative itself, which is why everyone is hoping that through digitization, the legal system as a whole will become faster, better, and more just. Now, the question remains, and that was also asked by Tom Bregelmann for the Legal Revolution Expo, which is to take place at the end of 2020, for who? Now, that remains to be seen. And in any case, the question is no longer whether the judicial system will be digitized, but to what extent, and whether this digitization will also transform the judicial system, for better or worse, into a kind of new justice. So hi and welcome everybody to the second episode of the Prevence Podcast. For the people who are just tuning in for the first time today, the Prevence Podcast is a podcast about the legal profession in a digital age. Now, in the first episode, we interviewed Madeleine Heutz, who is a young legal tech entrepreneur from Cologne, and I'm especially happy to be able to introduce today a guest that is working in a more classical field of law, Thorsten Guder, who is a judge for criminal law. Hey, Thorsten, man, what's up?
Hey, man, thank you for having me.
It's so cool that you were able to come today. I think let's just get into it straight away. We'll start with the general questions. What is your academic background? What do you do today? And how did it come to, how did your career so far progress to the point to what you do today?
Well, I studied the law at the University of Bonn, where I got my first exam, and then I moved to Cologne, where I got my second exam, and then I started out as an attorney for 1 year, and then I became a judge. I think it was in April 2017, and so far I'm a judge at the local court in Cologne today, where I am in the field of jurisdiction of the investigative law. It's an investigative judge, if you might say.
Okay, so the term investigative judge, the term might be a little bit misleading in itself because at the end you don't really do the investigations, or is it?
That's correct. I don't do the investigations myself. That's done by the prosecutor's office, but I'm getting the files from the prosecutor's office, whether they move for an arrest warrant, a search warrant, something for a suspect, and it's everything in the criminal case up to the actual trial. So I'm not a trial judge, I'm the judge who's kind of, you might say, a kind of guardian of civil rights up to the trial. So that the prosecutor's office doesn't do anything they're not supposed to do, because, of course, you know, we've got civil rights in Germany, and you can't do anything to a suspect just because he's a suspect.
Right, absolutely.
Yeah.
So, my next question would be, is there any specific reason why you chose that particular field of law or field of jurisdiction, or was it just maybe the next step in your career? How did it come to that you are now in the place where you are today?
Well, it's kind of the next step, but it's not a step in the case that I'm further upward than I was before. I was before in the fields of jurisdiction, for example, traffic accidents or rental jurisdiction. And now I got asked by the president whether I want to do the investigative law. And I said, yes, okay, I'm going to do it. As a judge, it's like you do one field of jurisdiction for a few years, and then you change your field of jurisdiction just because mistakes that might be made or might not be made, but it does not perpetuate, and they've got always fresh blood in one field of jurisdiction.
Right, you said that you started out as a lawyer and afterwards became a judge. The question that I have, and I think the question that would interest a lot of people as well, is how do you become a judge? Is it like you send in an application, or is there an actual, is it enough to just be good at law, or is there some sort of assessment to see if you are also socially fit? Are there any barriers or any safety measures, you could say, put in place by the state before someone can become a judge?
Well, I became a judge because I sent an application and I sent a letter of motivation. And then there was an assessment held by a few people, a few judges, for example, the president of the local court here in Cologne. And there I got chosen to be a judge. It got to do with my degree, with my
Your grades
with my grades from the university and from the 2 exams I got, but it's not the whole truth. Of course, you need high grades, but there are cases of people they got enormous grades, very high grades that were not deemed fit in this assessment to be a judge. Yeah, so
interesting.
You also need perhaps some people skills. You need a sense of
social, some moral character, maybe a sense of how. Yeah, you have to be a good person as well. Is that what?
I do think you have to be a good person in every profession, but you have to be also. You have to. I think the biggest thing is you got a sense of responsibility,
right?
Because the decisions you make can have a high impact on the people's lives.
Absolutely. Yeah.
For example, today, if I arrest somebody, if I put somebody in detention for a few months, you might lose your job. You cannot pay your rent anymore. You might be evicted. People talking why you're not in your apartment anymore, and so it's a high impact on your life. And in the end, you might be innocent or might be deemed innocent.
Yeah.
So you need the sense of responsibility, I think.
Absolutely, yeah. So I don't know if you know this, but this podcast is basically about the legal profession in front of the the digital backdrop that I just talked about. And I think in a more classical field of law. Last time when we talked to Madeleine, of course, she is very new age. She's very connected. She even has a TikTok channel and everything. I was wondering, how is that in the more classical field? Of law, especially now that we have the corona pandemic, because I think it might be very, very hard to basically substitute a courtroom setting with a Zoom meeting or a Zoom Pro account. I don't really see how that will happen. So my question to you would be, how did you guys handle the whole corona situation? What was going on there at your court?
Well, first of all, I listened to episode 1 of your podcast. It was a great episode,
that's nice.
By the way.
Yeah,
and I do think the legal profession is kind of a conservative one that moves very slowly with the time, especially in the fields of digitalization. So the courts in Germany and the courts in North Rhine-Westphalia, the county which we are currently at, they are not at the point that you can do home office freely.
Okay.
We don't have at this point in time laptops or any form of iPad or something that you can use at home. We are not connected, so you have to appear at the office to do actually work. Of course, you can write something at home, but then you still have to get it to the office to get something done.
Yeah.
And I do think that's got to do with the conservativeness of the legal profession itself. So at the university, you get the impression after your exam, it's enough if you got some paper and a pen, and then you got to be a great lawyer.
Right.
But today, that's possibly a better thing that we got digitalization and some databases we can look at.
Yeah.
And I do think the slowness of the digitalization at the courts got to do with the multitude of problems you are facing. There are a lot of judges. You have to pay a lot of judges. You have to pay a lot of tablets or laptops. Right. Then you have to pay you have to develop a program that enables you to do home office and that's safe, so that nobody can watch what you're doing in a way that was not a problem before.
Yeah.
So, and this is something that has to go rather slowly, I think.
Yeah.
And the second thing is that the courts in Germany don't actually need to digitalize because we got the monopoly.
Right.
You know, if you want to get a judgment, you have to get a pen, get a paper, and write. And there's no alternative at this point.
Okay.
And so we dictate the terms of communication, and because of that, I do think digitalization moves really slowly.
Okay.
But thankfully, the people now realize that digitalization also can help to speed up some processes,
right? Yeah.
And perhaps in the end even cost less than before. So we are getting an e-file, so an electronic file.
Right. Okay.
I do think in the mid of next year, which will enable us to do home office, and then if Corona strikes back again, we can all be working at our homes, and you won't even realize some things that Corona is going on, because at the courts the work is still be done. In a courtroom, there's one problem. The cases have to be tried publicly.
All right.
So you have to be able as a citizen to go to these trials and to watch them. In criminal trials as well as in civil trials, with the exception of some family law. Of course, nobody has to know the insides of your family.
Of course not.
Yes. And so you have to provide some seats in the courtroom for the public, for some journalists, for some people that are interested in this case. And so you can't do it on Skype or any other program. But I do know of some judges that are doing civil cases via Skype.
Okay.
So they got the two lawyers.
Interesting. Yeah.
The plaintiff and the defendant, and they are talking about the case, and they are doing this, but it's a few of the judges.
Right. Yeah. I find that particularly interesting because you say that now it is slowly becoming a trend in Germany. But I mean, if we look at, we did a little research, right? And if you see, like, electronic legal communications have been firmly established and stable in Austria since 1999. So, 21 years ago, they were already doing it. In the UK, there are very concrete intentions to introduce an online court, actually, like a proper online court. And in the US, court proceedings and electronic online case files have been the standard in the federal courts for more than 10 years, since 2011, I think. Also in the Netherlands, litigants can submit civil and administrative case procedural documents like divorce petitions, like family law, right? Payment dispute documents, everything in digital form. I think, I was talking to you before in preparation. You said in Poland they have a fully digital courtroom proceeding. In Lithuania they have an EPP system, which our founder Edgar Rast said is not completely customer friendly, but they're already moving. Everybody's moving into that direction. Do you think that has a lot to do? And exactly. That was my question: is why is that so slow in Germany? Do you think maybe it is a generation shift that now that you have young lawyers like you and young judges like you who are basically pushing that a little bit more, or from where is this push coming that that we're having the e-file soon and everything?
I do think it's kind of out of necessity. So even the older judges or the older people in politics realize we can't do this paper thing forever. And as you mentioned, the year 1999 in Austria, at this point, the courts in Germany did not even have a program with whom to work with. So we got the standard programs that are provided by a big company from America, but none more. And I do think that it's hard for some age judges to adjust to this new digitalization. And of course, it's way easier for younger people that grew up with computers and something like this. But I do think the sense that it is very necessary to digitalize. Absolutely. Because of this monopoly we got. Really did not occur fast. And but I do think the plans they got, they will get the German courts even at this point. I do know that there are plans, but further in the future, to digitalize German trials, to tape them, to get them on tape. But we are not at this point yet. As you know, we don't even have an e-file. So that's the big step in the next future. And I do think that the problem is particularly that the people that get asked to do these steps of digitalization are judges.
Okay.
So the administration asked some judges, so do you think, are you able to write a program for judges? Some of the judges are agreeing with this. They are saying, I can do it, but I need some years.
Right.
Because I'm not an IT guy. Yeah, he's not. And so the progress is slowly developing. And I do think probably sometimes with some outside help, some things would work faster. But if they would work this fast, the needs of the judges and the courts possibly could fall aside. So every step that is taken by an agreement of all the courts, the judges, everybody has to pitch in, can pitch in. And so I do think it is slowly, we are getting there, but at this point, we are not there.
Okay. And you think a collaboration would not be possible? I mean, of course, you can't ask a judge, hey, by the way, I mean, you're a legal eagle, you know basically everything about German law, but do you also know how to write code? And would you be able to write that? I mean, who will be able? But I mean, you know.
Okay, they're not writing the code itself, but they are with the writers from step one. So they are
on an instructional.
I might add something that there are also law firms, particularly with older attorneys, that don't even have computers yet. So if you're talking about the digitalization of firms, they are those big firms. They are always communicating per email and something like this. But also, and I do think that's got something to do with the pen and paper
mentality,
mentality. That some older, not a lot, but a few that don't even have computers and they type it via hand or something, and
or let the secretary do it or something.
Let the secretary do it, of course. Well, I do think technology helps a lot with communication. So whether you are writing emails to some attorneys or to some colleagues or to some people you might reach, and I do think it also helps with research.
Right.
So you got all these big databases today where you can find some cases similar to yours. Absolutely. And I do think the quality of jurisdiction has changed a lot in the last 10 years or 20 years, and it got way better.
Yeah.
Because now we are seeing, basically, we are able to see a lot of decisions in similar cases, a lot of judgments in similar cases, and are not with our one book.
Exactly.
And
or hundreds of books.
and our own thoughts. So those the jurisdiction, I do think, is getting way better than it was 20 years ago.
Yeah.
But it also makes the decisions made by the courts a lot longer, because you can sometimes copy paste old decisions that are in the similar cases. You might add something, but I do think 40 years ago or something like this, there were judgments on half a piece of paper.
Right. Yeah.
So today that won't happen anymore.
We don't find these today. No. Yeah.
Harder, I don't know. I don't think anything has gotten harder.
Good. Yeah.
Perhaps with some clue that the judges, because of the digitalization and the digital file and the e-file, are going to do some of the work the secretaries do.
Okay.
So this might be, I don't know whether it's going to be more work to do or not, but I do think that could be a possibility of doing more work.
Yeah. And what about in terms of security? You know, I mean, I'm pretty sure that the court decisions won't be uploaded into some cloud or anything.
No.
But I mean, how are there any security measures that are put in place specifically so that you can be sure that this extremely personal data has multiple safeguards so that not anyone can hack into it?
Well, there is most of the courts in North Rhine-Westphalia are connected to one big server.
Right. Yeah.
Or I do think there's one server and two backup servers.
Okay.
So if the one server got
hacked or whatever.
There you got two backup servers,
Right.
and they are very secure.
Yeah.
The local court in Cologne, where I'm currently working at, does not have these central servers yet.
Yeah.
We do have our own system, and I do think it's very secure at this moment, because this is the first thing you think about as safety. You always have to think about there are very high profile data, and especially in the investigative criminal law. So because much investigations are not public.
Okay.
They are, you don't know about them yet, and it would be sometimes a great failure to let the suspect know that that is under investigation, so he can flee the country and destroy evidence or something like this. So you have to be very careful with this data. And but so far, I think this is one of the first things, if not the first thing, everybody cares about.
Yeah.
Perhaps even a reason why the digitalization moves as slowly as it does at this current point.
Right. Okay. Another question I would like to put into your way is for the students out there listening, how does a typical day look for you? Like, do you come to court and then you just start putting away the bad guys, or how does a typical day of work look for you?
Well, at this point in this field I'm in currently now, I do have 4 days of office time. It's at the court building, and it's basically a 9-to-5 job, but it always depends on the files I'm getting from the prosecutor's office. So there can be a longer day, but there can also be a very short day if I'm not getting some files and there's no investigating to be done. So this varies, but there's one day in the week where I'm the judge, who is the one to do the arrest warrants, the putting in jail part.
Yeah, right.
And then I'm at the police station of Cologne, the local police station, from basically 7 in the morning till 9 in the evening.
Okay.
And then it's like you say, I'll get some movements for arrest warrants, and then I'll decide whether the suspects that are in the police station that the prosecutor's office moved to arrest are going to jail for awaiting trial. So it's not the trial yet.
Yeah.
The putting in jail part I'm doing is only because those suspects are. There's a high probability that those suspects would flee the trial, would not be in court, or would do other things that they're not supposed to do. For example, a killer that is perhaps there's a possibility that he kills again, so he has to go to jail until the trial starts or ends. And this is the part I'm doing, so I'm not the one that in the end decides whether there has to be a judgment like prison or something.
Sure. You're just the one who issues the warrant, though.
I'm just the one that issues the warrant for awaiting trial.
Okay, I see. Right.
So I don't interview the people. I only talk to the suspect. Of course, they got the right to defend against the prosecutor's office, whether they say, I won't flee the trial, or something like this. And they always got their defense attorneys at their side. And so sometimes I don't put them in jail because there's no reason to do it. And this is the day with the most work in this field of jurisdiction.
I have a question that I would like to put in between, actually. In America, they have this Miranda right. You know them from all the movies with Denzel Washington, for example. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you. All of that. Is there an equivalent to the Miranda rights in Germany? Is there something like there is?
There is an equivalent, and of course, as a suspect in Germany, you don't have to say anything either. And actually do tell them, I do think you know it from the movies already.
Right.
So, and everybody does. Of course, you don't have to say anything as a suspect in a criminal case. And most people don't do it till their attorney has reviewed the file.
Interesting. Okay,
So
that's cool.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Now, I know you can't talk about anything, you can't go into any details, but are there any high-profile cases that you would, or any, let's say, they don't even have to be high-profile, actually, but just some cases where you would say, wow, this decision really moved me, or basically maybe changed the way that I think about the law, or were just plain awesome or something? Anything you'd like to share with us?
Well, I do think, as I said before, I get every criminal case up to the trial.
Right.
So I do get the murder cases, the rapist cases, all things like this, child pornography, which is sometimes hard to do if you're if there's on a day nothing else but child pornography to review, and so. I do think high profile always murder is a high profile thing. Once I sat in this room with a suspect who was there because he killed a mate of his with a knife. I do think he hit him 82 times. Oh, God. And he was a veteran from a war.
Okay.
And so I was a little bit scared. So I did think, okay, he doesn't give a damn whether there are policemen, because he has seen worse things like this. And but he was very calm and collected, so that was not the problem. At first, when I got into this field of law, I actually considered every case where I put somebody in arrest, a big case. The next day I always reviewed everything in my head. Did I do the right thing? Because of course it's hard for somebody to go to jail.
Absolutely.
And you have to consider every aspect. And so I reviewed it the next day. Every case I had, did I do the right thing? Now I'm actually a little bit more confident that I do often do the right thing, and I know what is right more than I was in the beginning. So this made it a little bit easier for me.
Right.
And I do think the best cases are where the prosecutor's office is moving for an arrest warrant for someone to go to jail. And then I decided in just a few cases, that the evidence is not supporting this movement. And in the end, it appeared that he didn't do the crime. So I thought to myself, okay, this one did not go to jail for weeks or months just because of me. So he kept his freedom just because I was sitting in this chair and doing this decision. And this actually felt pretty good. So
I believe that.
And he will never know, because it was done at my office desk, this decision. And I do think he will never know that he was coming so close to jail. So, that's what I said, the guardian of civil rights.
Yeah. Wow, that was, great story. Shit. Right, if I can... I know Thorsten and me, we've been friends for very long years, and you also told me a story once, I don't know if you remember, about, I think it was a refugee who was held in custody for, I think, sexual assault. Okay, he photographed a girl under her skirt or something like that, and it was just custody, of course. Are you allowed to talk about that case? Otherwise we can cut it? Okay, so what happened
this detention
there?
was not about the crime, it was to keep him photographing further. Okay. So this was just to keep him photographing for a few hours. And at first I talked to him and said that's not okay. And he said, well, why is it not okay? At the beach I see those girls in their bikinis, and it's the same clothes. Why am I not allowed to do this? And then we talked for about 10 minutes about this, and then suddenly he started crying and apologized to me. He just wanted to send those pictures to his brothers to show him how great Germany was. And then I told him that he has to stay 2 more hours and then he's allowed to go. till the sun dawns and no more girls with skirts
Okay.
are around in the parks.
Yeah.
And but he did not understand me correct. He thought I said 2 months, and then he panicked. And I do think that this shock will keep him from photographing further.
Right.
But I actually said he has to stay for 2 more hours.
But actually, I mean the actual act of like, okay, so this and this happened, and I'm going to go down and talk to the guy, and that he actually understood, like that you could actually, give, because from my perspective, he didn't see what he did wrong. But after your discussion, no matter the 2 months or 2 hours, whatever, I mean, he went out of there thinking like, okay, this behavior, even though, I might have put that parallel in bikini and, the city, it's just wrong. And I think, I'm trying, how can I say that in a way that sounds professional? No, like, it's just plain awesome, because in the end of the day, this guy, he came from a completely different society with a completely different legal rule, gets thrown into this society, doesn't understand it, but then, someone in the legal profession, you as a judge especially, come in as a medium to say, listen, it doesn't work this way because this and this and this, and maybe this is exactly what that person needed, exactly like the kind of like a person tell him why it's not correct to do so, even though if you think about it in his way, rationally, they walk around like that on the beach as well. Makes sense, but you need someone, and I think that's exactly what makes the legal profession so important. People to be able to be a medium between, hey, listen, we have that kind of rule because of, and then this applies to our society because of this and this and this.
Yeah.
So
I do hope that now he gets the difference between the two situations. But there are also cases of people who actually know they did something very wrong.
Okay.
You don't have to tell them that they did something wrong.
Yeah.
They know it from the beginning.
Right.
But there are also people you talk to that don't in the end even think they did something wrong, and they do think they get treated badly and don't get understood by the judge or by the police officers that arrested them. And I do think there are all kinds of cases.
Yeah.
But of course, you try to convince them that some things in Germany are forbidden or even a crime, and that they have to accept this.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So, Thorsten, I actually want to ask a controversial question.
Yes.
So, is there anything like in your line of in your career as a judge or before as a lawyer, maybe, is there one big mistake you made, something that you regret profoundly? Any big mistakes?
Well, as a joke, I can say saying yes to doing a podcast without knowing it was held in English was quite a big mistake.
That sounds terrible.
But of course, I did mistakes. As a lawyer, as an attorney, I did mistakes as a judge. I do think all of them are quite boring. So, of course, mistakes happen. And every suspect, every person that gets hit by a decision by the court has the right to appeal, always. If I was perfect or my colleagues were perfect, you don't need the right to appeal. So mistakes are made in every part of the society where humans work, and even where computers work sometimes. And I do think it's not a mistake. I don't consider it a mistake. But one day I arrested a person for molesting a girl, for possibly a rape. And I do think at this point in time, the evidence presented by the prosecutor's office was enough to get him arrested. But in the end, this evidence fell away. A few months later, I do think 4 months later, and I don't consider it a mistake because at this point in time where I issued the warrant, the evidence supported the decision. But in the end, of course, in the bigger picture, you might say it's a mistake because he was actually probably innocent. And so, that's the hard thing in this line of work. There are going to be people arrested that are actually innocent. And as good as it felt to not issue the warrant in this case I told you before, where in the end he was not guilty. Of course, I thought about it many times, whether I had to do it or I could have made another decision, but I do think at this moment it was not a mistake to do it.
Yeah. Whew, wow. Okay. One last finishing question. As I said, a couple of students are listening to this podcast. So you've seen both sides of the law. You've been working as a lawyer and you've been working as a judge.
Yes.
What do you prefer, taking both into account? And do you say, where would the pros and cons lie?
Well, I do think it's about the kind of person you are. For me, I studied the law because in the beginning, I didn't know what else to study. And then I kind of, well, it's a bit melodramatic, but I fell in love with the field.
That's exactly what we're going for.
I fell in love with the field. with studying the law.
Oh, God.
I just liked it.
Yeah. Okay.
And the problem with being an attorney or a lawyer in a firm is that I do think oftentimes it's not the law, which is the law is in the background, and it's being a businessman, which is the most important thing. And I'm of the opinion I did not sign up to be a businessman. I do know that you got this conversation in a different part in the first episode of this podcast, where it's all about appearance as a lawyer. Of course, it's all about appearance as a judge as well. You can't go into court like a hobo. Nobody would actually
take you seriously.
Take me seriously, accept my decision. And I am the face of the country in this moment, of this society.
Absolutely.
So I can't go in with hoodies and chucks in this point. But I do think being a businessman is not for me. I'm not the one who goes to people and tell them, go to me, I'm the best attorney in town. And I do not how those attorneys do it, but if you fail, if you do something very stupid and your client loses the trial because of you, I would not be able to look them in the eye anymore. But there are people out there that are so,
never mind.
You always lost this trial. Did the best everybody could do, and this is not for me. I would be ashamed to. I could not look them in the eye anymore, and I do like it as a judge. I always say that I do think being a judge is the best job in the legal profession. Of course, not the best job. As you once said, the best job would be being teaching surfing at Hawaii.
That sounds a lot like me. I do not remember the specific occasion, but that sounds a lot like me. Yes.
And I do think that the freedom that the profession brings with it, and the sense of responsibility is unparalleled at other legal professions.
Right.
And of course, that freedom, not having a boss in the case, is something very great. So I can go home in the office at 2 p.m. if I want to. If I cannot come in the office at all if there's nothing to do for me. I can decide to work at the weekends and don't come into office on Mondays or something like this. So I like this, and I actually like the people that are working with me. I do think that my colleagues, the other judges, they are always, or in most cases, doing it because they also think like me, that this is a great job to do, and they love to do it. And because you mentioned the grades you have to bring to be a judge, at least in the city of Cologne. And everybody that is working at the courts in Cologne could be at a big firm and would earn more money than they do right now. So they have to love this job, or they are plain stupid. But then we come back to the grades, and no.
Shout out to the colleagues. Shout out to the colleagues, whether.
I don't want to bash any attorneys. Those are people that are good in being businessmen. That are good at performing like businessmen, and of course there are a lot of good attorneys that are good lawyers out there, which is very helpful oftentimes. And but the profession of a judge is, I do think, the best thing I could do with being or with studying the law.
Yeah.
For me personally.
Yeah.
And I do know that every person has other preferences.
Yeah.
And even winning cases as an attorney is very exciting. Going into a battle of arguments against another attorney. But also the work you do before the court. Most of the cases, especially in the civil law, don't even come to the courts because there are always attorneys negotiating. And those parts, of course, are interesting too. But it's a very
diverse field.
Egocentric view that I got. But for me, I do come into office with a smile every day. So I do think that's a great good.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's one last. So I'm also allowed to ask a social question, and I know of it. Thorsten.
Okay.
Rap music or rock music?
Well, I like both, so I'm going with Run DMC featuring Aerosmith.
That's a diplomatic answer. Okay, that's a very diplomatic answer. Thorsten, thank you so much for your time today.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
And it's awesome. It's awesome that you said yes to this. And I think I really enjoyed talking to you. And when you're elected as a judge at the German Supreme Court, give us a call and we'll try to interview one of your colleagues. Thanks, man.
Thank you very much.
Cheers, man. Ciao.
Prevence Podcast.